Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. Yes, and our room is really floweth overing. So, what do we got? Oh boy, is this a strange collection of things in the letter N. I think the letters N and O have been pretty fascinating. Because they, aside from Nielsen, you don't have like major people with huge clumps of stuff, and in the O's, Offenbach. It's been small, interesting composers who you may not have heard of. And that makes things, I think, even more interesting. For example, we have José de Nebra. José de Nebra lived from 1702 to 1762. He was a Spanish Baroque guy, and he wrote Baroque zarzuelas, which were, sort of like intermedios or intermezzos. They were short, peppy, not like romantic zarzuela. That was a later thing in the 19th century, or even the 20th century, where they were almost like musicals. They became, very, very, or operettas. These were Baroque things, but they tended to be shorter on mythological subjects. And here we have some liturgical music by him, his Miserere, which is, performed by Al Aire Español under Eduardo López Banzo, harpsichord and conductor. But you also get two excerpts from his Zarzuela, Iphigenia and Thracia, Iphigenia in Thrace. I mean, Iphigenia was everywhere. Remember, she was in Aulis, she was in Tauride, and now she's in Thrace for some reason. And we've got an Allegro cantabile and a recitative in aria. Ha, in grotto. It's always the same thing, isn't it? Which means, of course, ha, you jackass, you bum, you jerk, you turd. Yeah, okay. In grotto. So that's disc number one here from de Nebra. And then here, as part of that wonderful Zarzuela series on Ovidis Valois, they did Zarzuela Barocco, and this is Viento es la dicha de amor, or the wind is the motto of love. So if you want to translate it that way, it's very, very interesting. So this was composed, does it tell us? Somewhere around between version integrata of 1743 and 1752. So it's a late work, and this is Christophe Coin who's conducting. It's a very, very good performance, featuring Maite, oh my God. Okay, Arruabarrena. Yep, that's it. Maite Arruabarrena. There we go. And Marta Almahano and Raquel Pirotti and Pilar Jurado and Maria del Mar Doval. Yeah, great. I got through that with the Ensemble Baroque de Limoges under Christophe Coin. So that's this Zarzuela thingy, and like, oh God, okay. Yeah. Some very, very obscure things have been recorded, haven't they? I mean, isn't it phenomenal when you think about I was thinking about this actually just the other day. It's also kind of overwhelming, isn't it? So much music. It's just so much music. Thousands of years or hundreds and centuries of music. And it's all sitting there. And probably there's more that hasn't been recorded than has. It's endless. It's endless. Then we have Yves Nat, the great French pianist. His recordings from 1930 to 1956. 15 CDs, including the complete Beethoven piano sonatas and the variations without opus number 80, and Brahms, Rhapsodies, Handel variations, and the Intermezzi opus 117, Chopin's Funeral March Sonata, the Fantasy in F minor, and the Barcarolle, the Franck Symphonic Variations, Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody number 2, Schubert, Moments Musicaux, Deutsch Listing 780, and a pile of Schumann, the Piano Concerto, Papillon, Toccata, Fantasia Stücke, 2 versions, Opus 12, the Symphonic Etudes, Kindersehnen, 2 recordings, Chrysleriana, the Fantasy, Opus 17, Arabesque, Humoresque, Novelettes, the Carnival in Vienna, 2 romances, Stravinsky's Danse Russe from Petrushka, and an interview and with Yves Nat and his own piano concerto and other pieces, 5 songs and things. I mean, really a very gifted guy. This is all in mono. His Beethoven sonatas were famous. He was a pianist of very, let's say, classical leaning tendencies. You know, his style was neat and polished, and you know, in things like the Pathetique Sonata, you know, he binds the movement together. He doesn't have, like, you know, extremes of tempo and whatnot. But he was a very, very gifted musician, and this was nice to have. I mean, I hung on to this forever, and every so often I dip into it because I find his Beethoven to be a very, very interesting alternative view quite often, legitimate alternative view to what we normally hear these days. They don't make pianists of that style anymore. That wonderful French school. Then we've got Conlon Nancarrow. My goodness, I mean, I see what I told you. You've got Nebra to Nancarrow. That's quite a selection, isn't it? Little pieces and things for like chamber ensemble, and pieces 1 and 2 for small orchestra, which are quite short. Nancarrow, of course, was a composer who gave up writing for normal instruments because he felt they couldn't play with the precision that he demanded, and he wanted to experiment with things like irrational time signatures, you know, like 4 instead of 3/4, it's like 3 over pi I r squared e to the x, you know, things like that. And he did it. I mean, he did it. He did it using protractors and, you know, measuring things and punching holes in player piano rolls. And that's what he's famous for. He's a fascinating composer, really a genius of what he did, which was limited. Granted, it was limited, but it was extraordinary, and it advanced the possibilities of what music could do. Whether or not we care about what those possibilities were, well, that's something else entirely, isn't it? But he was tremendous, and this is a wonderful disc. You've got his String Quartet number 1, and his Sonatina for piano, which is transcribed for piano 4 hands, and it's very well played by a whole slew of people here. Continuum, Cheryl Seltzer and Joel Sachs, directors on Naxos. So that's definitely worth hearing. And with that, boy, what an interesting collection of Overflow that was, wasn't it? It's just amazing. Absolutely. I just marvel at it. I really do. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.